Hey everybody, my name is Robert Norman. I'm the coach at K2N Dragon Boat Club located in Hernando, Florida. I have been doing a bunch of video reviews lately, and these are some common mistakes that I have seen in video reviews for Outrigger Canoe. So before we start the clip, I want everybody to notice that I am in a Kaiwa'a Gemini, and before we start, I want everybody to also know that I am in the boat by myself. So I only have access to an OC2 right now, so I hope that isn't too funny not to watch, right? So we're looking, and then I can frame this as if I'm paddling. It looks like I'm in a nice, very cool REs by myself. So these are common mistakes that I see in Outrigger Canoe. A lot of these mistakes spawn from dragon boating. When you're paddling in dragon boat, it is a sprint style sport where you're paddling between 30 seconds and maybe a maximum of 10 minutes if you're doing the 2K. And when you have 9 to 19 other people propelling a boat for you for a very short duration, you can get away with a lot of inefficiencies and make up for them with absolute brute force and fitness. In long distance racing, it reveals so much about your skill level. If you have inefficiencies, they will be revealed in thousands of strokes if you're paddling by yourself, or even if you have a seat partner. If there's a very high level, they'll be suffering if you have inefficiencies. And if you both have inefficiencies, the boat will just not be moving as adequately as it could. That all being said, if you're interested in a video review for yourself, and you want to be the person in this box and getting some tips on how to paddle better and make your boat move faster, just contact me via email. The link is in the description, and we can get you set up for that. All proceeds help my club, which helps promote paddling in my area. So common mistake number one is managing blade angles. So as we're going through the stroke, we have positive blade angle, where the blade is oriented in this direction. Neutral blade angle, where the paddle is straight up and down, and then negative blade angle, where the blade is behind me. Paddlers will enter the water at about their foot, and so their first contact with the water is neutral, and then the paddle leaves the water negative, right? The length in the water is the issue here. If you're only paddling from your foot to your sit bones, like it's not a big length in the water. If you watch me here, I try to, let's go back one more where you can see it. So blade tip touches the water here. From this position, I have positive blade angle, and my blade tip is touching the water. When the blade tip is touching the water, all additional movements with my body are going to be transferred to the water, which is going to move the boat forward. So from here, I have grip on the water, and you can see as my blade goes in the water, the boat moves forward. So looking at it from that direction, now as we're looking at it here, it's harder to see the blade tip, but my blade is entering the water here, meaning that my paddle is, let's go one more stroke, so it's a little bit more side view. Let's go back, move it here. So from here, blade tip is touching the water, and then as the paddle progresses through, all the way to my sit bones and a little bit behind, right? So my length in the water is much longer than a paddler that is just entering at their foot, right? Which is about maybe here. Oh, and then going to the end of the stroke is only this length, right? So by reaching all the way forward up here, I can extend that length on a line that looks like this. Managing your blade angle will allow you to have the blade tip interact with the water beyond your foot position. My feet are not all the way up here. My foot well doesn't even start where this blade tip is touching, right? So each time I'm setting up that stroke, I'm trying to get my paddle blade beyond where my feet are at. Positive blade angle allows me to take advantage of the stroke up here, even if the entire blade is not in the water, and then follow through with it all the way to the end. It's the first common mistake, is not managing that blade angle, just going in neutral like so, right? If you're only interacting with the water like this each time, you are not maximizing how much of the stroke you can take. You want to interact with the water from here to the end, right? So you want this length in the water each time. The second common mistake that we see is, let's see, this is a pretty good angle, is inadequate rotation and managing body position. First one is managing the blade's position and the blade angle. The next one we're going to look at is going to be our body's leverages. So our body's position allows us to manipulate a lot of things throughout the stroke. First, it allows us to have a positive blade angle. Bottom hand is further away than the top hand, which means that the paddle will be positive. If I extend my top arm straight, right? So if my elbow wasn't bent, it would be out here somewhere. And then my top hand and bottom hand would both be on a line that looked like something like, not even this. It would look like, sorry, my thumb is being a little weird here. Something like this, right? So if you extend your top hand too far forward, it is going to change the angle of your paddle to more neutral, right? So we want positive angle, right? Where it's at currently, and if the top hand is extended too far, the blade is going to be more up and down, right? So you can see that my top hand and bottom hand here are at the same length away from my body, and the paddle's neutral, right? Only by having the top hand closer to us can we have and achieve positive blade angle. Making sure that the top hand is not extended over the head will maximize your body's leverages, right? So if my top arm extended from here overhead, the further above my shoulder my elbow is, so the higher my elbow is from my shoulder, the less effective it becomes. Only at elbow high to the shoulder is it most effective. There's a lot of sports where you can look at this when a fighter throws a punch. They don't have their elbow at ear level. They have their elbow at shoulder level. When a quarterback throws a ball 60 yards, their elbow is at shoulder high. They rotate through, right? We don't want the top arm to get overextended. The top arm's effectiveness is minimized the more extended overhead it is. So if your top hand is above your head, it means that your elbow is too high. In this case, my top hand is about forehead level, but my elbow is about, hold on, right here. Elbow to shoulder is all level, right? This is an attempt to maximize my top arm's leverages. That top elbow bending slightly will manipulate the paddle to be positive. So we have top arm leverages. So the common mistake that we see is the top arm is overextended and then this paddle becomes neutral because of it. The next common mistake that we're seeing is as we're going through the stroke, we want to push our feet into the footwell and not both of them. You want to push one foot. So in this case, as I'm going through the stroke and setting up, my left foot is pushing into the footwell. This foot pushing into the footwell allows for a rotational base. Let's go to this next stroke. You can see my knees are moving. This allows a rotational base for my body to lean forward into. Right? So my body being leaned forward is based on the success of the weight that I have on my foot here. If you push with both feet, you cannot effectively lean forward on your feet. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get our weight off of our hips on the sit bone and transfer them onto the paddle. If our weight is on our sit bones and our stroke is occurring here, that means that we're trying to get weight on the paddle here, but our body weight is back here. Pushing into this footwell with the foot and leaning the torso forward means that you're moving the weight transfer from the hips to the footwell. This allows you to lean forward on this top hand, which is putting your body weight onto the stroke. So we'll go through this. That stroke's effectiveness is maximized by leaning forward and pushing with my left foot into the footwell, pushing my torso forward, and my weight transfers from my foot back to my butt as I'm completing the stroke. As we're going here, the weight transfer is going from my hips, and you can see my torso leaning forward, rotating into my left leg, making contact with the water, and now pushing off of this foot as the stroke completes. The common mistake that we see is paddlers keeping their weight on their butt. If they're pushing with both feet, it means that they're pushing their weight back into their hips before the paddle goes into the water. This means they cannot effectively get their body weight from their hips to the water. So those are the common mistakes that we're seeing: is managing blade angle, having good positive blade angle, managing the body's motion, right? There's a lot of things we can do with that body, transferring the weight back and forth, managing the top arm. The other thing, I see it more and more now, it becomes a little bit more common, but rotating into the stroke allows you to maximize your reach and your leverages, and using your entire body into the stroke. Ultimately, top hand pressure takes priority. How do you get top hand pressure? Leaning forward into this footwell will transfer your weight forward and creeping from here to the hand down into the water. If you're not leaning forward, you can't get weight on this top hand. After you get top hand pressure, now you can start rotating and having this bottom shoulder extended forward, this top shoulder is back, and rotating your body into the stroke. I'll go back one more. You can see that when I start the stroke, you can see my back. And when I complete the stroke, you can see my torso, right? So I have a full torso lean forward, transfer the weight from the hips to the foot, top arm in ideal position, back towards the water, rotate, top hand pressure all the way through, legs are moving, the entire body is engaged in that stroke. So let's look at some things that I'm working on. Let's see, this is a good one to show it. That looks pretty good. So I've been focusing on the front part of the stroke and the catch for quite a while now, using top hand pressure. I work a side catch mechanic here that you can see. What this is doing is it's allowing my body to take precedence and be in good position, and then I think about the blade being in position second. What this does is, by prioritizing this, the paddle is always going to be oriented in a semi-diagonal way. The side catch is that the inside corner of the paddle is touching the water first. So there's more air on the outside corner than there is on the front. This allows me to be greedy with the stroke and get 2 or 3 more inches of reach at the front, even if I'm only grabbing it with this first or the inside corner. It's another grip on the water. I can extend further out and propel the boat forward just a little bit more. Ultimately, the entire blade is going to go in the water. So it's the inside corner first, then both corners, then the entire blade goes in the water, and then goes through the stroke, right? It's a way to just get an extra 2 or 3 inches at the front of the stroke. The second thing I'm working on is on my exit. I'm thinking about pulling out with my elbow and extending my top arm. So I'm thinking about my elbow joints doing a little bit more work as we're going through the stroke. So it's a common theme that do not paddle with your arms, which is 100% true at the front of the stroke. So as I'm going through the stroke, I'm using all my big muscles, my arms are extended, holding position, body rotating, all these big muscles. At the end of the stroke, at the very end of the completion here, you have generated all this momentum to propel the boat forward. And this is one little wrist flick, elbow flick that allows to propel the boat, or allows the boat to glide just a little bit more, right? So just like the inside blade tip touching allows for a couple more inches and more ideal body position, this tip at the end that I'm working on allows me to just thrust the boat by lifting my elbow out. You want to think about moving your biggest joints first, the hips, the shoulders, and then the next joint is going to be that elbow, and then finally the wrist. So I'm pulling the blade out of the water with my elbow at the very tail end. If you feel your bicep engage, it means that you're pulling the blade out too soon, in this case. If you do it right at the end, it's just a little extra to push the boat forward. Currently, those are the 2 tips that I'm working on right now. And in the OC2, I'm trying to keep better sync with my seat partners because I'm so used to solo paddling. I just do what I want when I want to, and I'm not a great seat partner sometimes. So right now, I'll just go through on the side. Actually, I have the other view on the non-AMA side. Let's see. I can zoom in here, and I'll just have you guys watch some of the strokes. If you want the person in this box to be you, let me know. I can break down a video frame by frame. I can add arrows and stuff here, positive blade angle, neutral blade angle, negative for the exit. Have things that you can see. You can see my elbow pulling the blade out of the water a little bit more here. You can see it signified by the splash. Managing blade angles, managing body position, letting the boat do the work. Excellent. I hope that's been helpful. If you want some more tips, just contact me and we can get that all set up. Thanks for watching. Bye.